would like to greet everyone who is present, and also more than 150 people who are participants and watching us through a TV broadcast. So hello to you. And this event is organized. This event is organized by the High School of Economics and Business, and by the fund of the UN in the sphere of UN Population Foundation. So today I would like to present the speakers of today's plenary session, and after that we are going to have 3 round tables, and later we're going to summarize what we have discussed. So first we have Katkalo, who is a vice rector of the high school, Ivan Prostakov, vice rector of High School of Economics for International Affairs, Alanna Armitage,
fund in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, Louise, Dann, partnership advisor of UNFPA.
And besides, here we have at the plenary session and during the roundtables we are going to have Marina, Vashukova, who is executive director of UN Global Contact Network of Russia, Evgenia Chistova, head of the sustainable development of Beeline or Vimpelcom, Tatiana Roshkova, the head of the social policy of the LMK group, and Tatiana Andreeva, from Volvo Cars, HR director, and I'd also like to provide the floor for short opening remarks to our dear colleagues. Now I'm giving you the floor. Alexander, good day. Good morning, everyone.
Today, Alanna, Louise, we are very, very happy and honored to host you here today at the Graduate School of Business, Higher School of Economics.
Now, good day, dear friends. We are happy to see every one of you in our High School of Business, of the High School of Economics, and we are happy to launch another event, another discussion together with the leaders of the leading Russian and global corporations with a topic that today is highly topical and one of the key problems of the contemporary education and business and various research. So we are speaking about the corporate social responsibility and about sustainable development of contemporary companies in the modern world. I am very thankful to our colleagues from the UNFPA, the UN Foundation for Population, who met with us a few months ago, and they said that we need to do this event, to make this event, and they drew our attention to the fact that with all this interest that exists towards ecological, environmental topics, to various issues related to corporate management from the perspective of the stakeholders' interests that have to be taken into account, and the issues of the social agenda today are no less important for the sustainable development of companies. I know that today, during the roundtables and during this panel discussion, the focus can be on 3 major issues or questions. This is the topic of inclusiveness of people who are elderly, and it is also equal rights for women in modern organizations, and of course this is a provision of equal possibilities, of equal opportunities for the development and work, and especially for those who are called disabled in English, and which is not good because they're not disabled, they're people with limited abilities but not disabled. Of course this range of social issues is much wider, but we think is much broader, but we think that we can move forwards in that, in our understanding of the effective tools and of the concepts, of course, only under 2 major conditions: when we will take into account, when we study and when we respect international experience as much as possible, when we look at how these problems are tackled in various institutions And at the same time, we pursue one single goal in all these three areas that I have just mentioned. And of course, for us, as a leading research institute, university, one of the major conditions for success is, of course, corporate partnership. And I am very I appreciate your presence, dear colleagues and dear companies and other colleagues who are going to join us during the panel discussion, for your readiness to share your practices and maybe even to ask some questions for the discussion. And in conclusion, I would like to say that today we are here in recently created, it's a new division of the High School of Economics. Our university is new because it was, only 30 years old. But it is now one of the strongest brand, not only in Russia, but in the whole world. And just a very short time ago, we decided to fill the gap that we had. We created the High School of Business by consolidating everything that was gathered in business education in our university for the recent 25 years. And today we have a new player coming into the Russian market of education and business education in the High School of Business, which is High School of Business. And in this connection, I would like to emphasize that from the very beginning of from the September of 2021, we are discussing the sustainable development, and this is a central topic now. Of course, we know that there are such terms as ethics of business, corporate social responsibility. These are very popular abbreviations, such as ESG. But of course, we are all united by this type of an umbrella concern of sustainable development, where the issues of social responsibility are especially important for us. And when we speak about effective management in contemporary companies, it's absolutely obvious that in the forefront, we mostly have effective and sustainable management of the most valuable thing that every organization has, which is governance or management of its human resources, of its teams, and development of its corporate culture, especially in the light of the circumstances and under which we have gathered here today. And using this opportunity, I would also like to mention that we are interested not only in the purely academic or research context. We are radically upgrading all the curricula in the sphere of management that we are providing in this school. In 2022, we are launching a special new master's program, which is management for sustainable development of a company. And we do it in alliance with the leading companies of Russia and the world. And we hope, and probably today's discussion, also, all these things will create and will attract new partners in the corporate world and for participation in this project. Once again, Alanna, thank you very much.
Event and really launching, I hope, a long-term and very fruitful, productive dialogue between your fund and our university, and especially the Graduate School of Business here. Good luck, and thank you very much again. Спасибо большое.
Many thanks a lot for your attention, and I wish you success in today's event, in today's forum. Thanks a lot, Ivan Valerievich. The floor is yours. Thank you. Now, dear participants, dear colleagues from UNFPA, from the High School of Economics, I'm very happy that the High School of Business, in partnership with the UNFPA, is organizing this workshop, which is expanding the sphere of interaction and cooperation with UNFPA. In fact, the history of our interaction between the university and the School of Economics and the School of Business is quite, with UNFPA, is quite long, maybe more than 10 years. And this is joint work on the programs of related to populations in CIS countries. And under these programs, we trained quite many specialists or experts in the sphere of population sciences. including people from post-Soviet countries, and we're very proud of this project, and we're very happy that we can work together, and I really hope that we will have new projects and we have ideas for the development of this cooperation, a deeper development of this cooperation. And the thing is that we're going beyond this cooperation even, and it's very important, and it's symptomatic of the development that we're having. And as it was mentioned correctly, the social issues, the social topics are one of the major the most important topics for the global development of our country, for the development of corporations. And but the thing is that social problems, they are mostly, it's a multidisciplinary thing. Just like our university, and this event, it reaffirms that we are moving to the social problems in the area of, under the context of multidisciplinarity, by covering various geographical zones as well. I spoke about the projects that we have already implemented, which is working with post-Soviet countries, and we are becoming a hub for the post-Soviet countries in the sphere of education, in the sphere of expertise, in the sphere of science, in the sphere of business education, among other things. And I hope, and I know that we are also going to have very good prospects in our interaction with this respect. And I saw today that among the participants there are representatives from various companies who are responsible not only for Russia but also for individual countries exactly from post-Soviet space, post-Soviet area. The expertise in the social policy, social responsibility of our school can be insightful not only for our partners but also for UNFPA, and we have a very wide range of partners in the sphere of organizing and representing events for UN, for UNESCO, for UNIDA, and the World Bank. And today, when there was a very interesting workshop together with the World Bank on the topics of gender distinctions in salaries, in payroll, but it was done in a different key. It was more academic, less corporate, but it was very interesting to see how these problems are viewed from various aspects, which corresponds to the spirit of our university, which matches the spirit of our university. And so it means that our expertise could be very insightful and applicable to what is done by our partners. On the other hand, these type of events for us are extremely important because, as it was said previously, we are actively involved in the global agenda of sustainable development goals, and I saw out of 17 goals, at least 5 or 6 of them are directly about social and democratic issues. They are related to migrations, poverty, education, health, and let alone all other aspects that are touching upon the social and demographic spheres, whether it is some new technologies or maybe it could be like peaceful development, it could be water resources. Everywhere there is a very important social demographic component. And for us, it is extremely important to be synchronized with the agenda which is initiated by the UN and initiated by UNFPA. So once again, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to organize and participate in this event and for organizing this event, and I hope that this will become a point for new initiatives and opportunities. And possibly now it's time to think about some kind of a pan-university event dedicated to sustainable development and social corporate responsibility. Thanks a lot. Alanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Professor Katkalo, Professor Prostakov, Marina from the Global Compact Network Russia, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Let me begin by expressing how pleased we are at UNFPA to all of you for joining this dialogue on CSR beyond COVID-19, which is really about how we can look at COVID-19, the lessons learned, and use it as a catalyst for building more equal and just societies. UNFPA is always grateful to be able to engage with and learn from Russian institutions, particularly for the work that we do across the region in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So I'm extremely pleased to be in Moscow today with my colleagues and have this opportunity to meet with you all. I would like to thank the Higher School of Economics and in particular the Graduate School of Business for co-organizing this dialogue with UNFPA and the Global Compact Network Russia. UNFPA, as you mentioned, has been a proud partner of the Moscow Higher School of Economics for several years now, mainly collaborating with the Institute of Demography in our programs across 17 countries and territories in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. But we are now delighted to be working with the Graduate School of Business to further support the collaboration between the UN and the Higher School of Economics. The United Nations Population Fund, or UNFPA for short, is the organization of the UN system that focuses on population and people, who they are, where they are, and how their lives can be improved. We support countries to identify and manage population change, and we help them to design more inclusive societies that leave no one behind, the very key aspiration of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we're very grateful to have the continued support of the Russian Federation to our work on population and development, which ultimately serves to improve data for better policies and better lives. Speaking of lives, COVID-19 has definitely reshaped all of our lives. The pandemic has exacerbated inequalities and hit the most vulnerable the hardest. And as you already mentioned, Professor, today we will be speaking about 3 of the most vulnerable populations: women, older people, and people with disabilities. The COVID-19 pandemic really added a new layer of challenges for women. Under lockdown and school closures, women have been bearing a disproportionate share of unpaid care and domestic work at home, with implications for their access to resources, to health and well-being. Women's participation in the labor force has actually dropped globally and in this region, leading to the loss of income for them and their families and increasing poverty. With respect to older people, COVID-19 has had a devastating impact. Older people are at higher risk of serious illness, and their odds of survival are the lowest. Many have lost their livelihoods and can't buy food or medicine that they need to survive. The pandemic has also exposed age-based discrimination like never before, and many older people have been cut off from the support and the caregivers that they rely on. Likewise, people with disabilities are among the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Even under normal circumstances, people with disabilities are less likely to access education, healthcare, and income opportunities. But due to a variety of factors, persons with disabilities have been more likely to be infected by COVID-19, develop serious illness or die, or find themselves isolated, impoverished, and facing increasing hardship. UNFPA has been working throughout this period to advocate for greater attention to the needs of the most vulnerable people and provide immediate responses. And I thought I would just show you a very brief video clip of the types of activities that we have been supporting in the past couple of years. Video, thank you. That's just a snapshot of UNFPA's work during the pandemic. But I know that all of you have been actively engaged as well in responding in your own ways, whether the academic community, the business community. And I think that COVID-19 has fundamentally changed the perspectives of people and governments. And there are so many lessons that we can learn. I think we learned that we need to be more creative and innovative in our approaches. We learned that, and at UNFPA particularly, I would say that we recognized that the critical role of the private sector as an employer, as an educator, as a direction of change. So in conclusion, let me just reiterate how pleased we are to share the next few hours with you. I think this conference really provides a unique opportunity to look beyond the pandemic, and as we say in our video, to build together a stronger, more equal and more just world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Alanna, your organization is doing a great job for our planet. That's truly so. И я бы хотел попросить Марину Вашукову,
to give the floor to Marina. Marina Vashukova, the Executive Director of UN Global Compact Network Russia. We've split the discussion into two parts. I'm happy about it, and I hope it works out well and be interesting. And so we'll have chance to have share some expertise with the leading businesses and taking good care of corporate responsibility. And the fund which I represent is bringing forward these companies that go deeper and more systematically involved and dedicate themselves into this agenda. It's not like the topical assortment to meet the requirements of CSR projects, but globally, the responsible businesses play the key role in this on this agenda. And if we narrow down this agenda to Russia as the global fund, we can say that Russian business is undergoing the very fast processes of reorganization and rearmament and transformation of business strategies on multi-levels and integration of corporate strategies of sustainable development along with the commercial strategies and strategic business strategic development measures. So we'll have a chance to have a discussion on this and draw the line of Rector. So all the speakers have been introduced. So I would like to have you, Louise, introduce your fund and how you partner, how you help the business in this pandemic environment. Thank you very much.
You've heard my regional director describe our focus on populations and people, particularly the vulnerable groups, and Dr. Armitage also mentioned our work with the private sector, with companies. And this cross-sector approach is really critical. Public and private and the individual, everyone has a part to play. We've been working with the private sector to align to these sustainable development goals, as you mentioned, and to help ensure a stronger focus on impact, to help companies have more equitable and family-friendly workforces as a driver of social cohesion and community, and to be a company that is open to business for all. Companies also bring great value to UNFPA's work. They help us to reach more people with services and information. They help us to optimize our programs with expertise and innovation, and they can bring additional resources. Companies who speak here today have a bigger global community than ever before, and that global community is usually larger than their global footprint. Companies like the UN engage with their customers, if you like, via Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. While your products may be unique, there is always competition, and sometimes it is the CSR policy that sets you apart. Customers today have choices, and they feel more comfortable with a company that is familiar, that shares their hopes and fears for the future and is doing something about it. This is an opportunity for CSR. Companies can use their CSR to align with national and global priorities and echo the hopes and fears of the consumer. And this is where the UN can come in. We are at the front end of global hopes and fears, and we can help companies to create more efficient and effective CSR programs and try and make a better future for all of us. Thank you, Marina.
Спасибо большое. У нас еще будет возможность вернуться.
Thank you very much. Lovely Tatiana, fantastic Evgenia. So and another fantastic Jenny. So you can make a wish. Well, we'll still think about your speeches. I'd like to propose a kind of a itinerary, so to make it happen more dynamic. We'll give you the 3 rounds of questions, a little blitz in this beloved play. Who is who and what's what? So you're responsible for your companies. So 3 short questions to all of you. Let's go back 2 years ago, time, and I would like to describe this strategy to the CSR strategies applied in your companies. Tatiana, dear colleagues, I represent briefly NLMK, the Lipetsky metallurgical millwork. In the couloirs, I've heard that NLMK, something was mentioned that we are milk factory. No, we are metallurgical mill works, and we represented it's in 7 countries, and we have 57,000 of employees. The social investment in last year was up to 8.5 billion rubles and 13 billion for ecological. The Novolipetsk metallurgical mill is located in where basically the major business in this town of Lipetsk. I will open my priorities in SCR and our. So in general, how we approach this. We strategically build our cycles. So our cycle is we're in the middle of 1822 cycle, and we'll dwell upon briefly how we lived before and now. During these 5 last years, we have had 4 major focuses, and one of them is this sustainable development. Why we call ourselves one of leaders? Because we are one of major business in this city, so we take the real and bear real responsibility on the people living there, and the sustainable is quite broad, and in implementation of this objective there's a lot of endeavors, which is we talk about industrial and ecological, and I represent the social division, and what were the priorities of ours throughout this year. So we took really care of the health and the health management, and the important aspect of this is whether the employer is bound to do, but we paid extra attention to develop the responsibility amongst our employees, and we have achieved big goals in this respect. We've made a lot of corporate paperwork. We have approved on the board level the human rights policies and strategy and the internal social programs. We reconsider the focuses of our charitable programs, and the management board is going to adopt the latest developed. We have approved the corporate well-being program has been approved by the board, and the special emphasis here is about diversity and inclusion. With this topic has been just launched, and in the next strategical circle it will be commenced. That's briefly, very briefly on the focuses made so far. So if you can kindly develop on your social focus. So have you made a wish? Because then we'll change trade places with you. Thank you very much for. I represent Wimpelcom, as more known in the world, maybe not only in Russia, Beeline, the brand, but we have presence in 8 countries of the world. So we place 8 or 6 or 9th cell phone operators on the accounts of account holders to who we supply our services and give internet access. We were the first in 1996, after the 90s, who stepped into the New York stock exchange. And that was our agenda, was based on, in terms of management, involvement, the best practices of the financial world, the stock market requirements to be met, and we obviously realized that the social responsibility we have to bear, and we have always thought of the developing and making all those practices transferable towards our clients and as a cell phone operator, and we actually impact the people in the countries where we're present at. So the corporate social responsibility is based on amongst other businesses, and we like everybody else. We look at where we could be most valuable, and in terms of the basic services which have the socio-economical impact. And the mainstream for us is the inclusivity of the economical network, the people in the remote areas who have as well limited people and disadvantaged or disabled people that can be included into the social economic aspect. And we see the main role, the important role that we basically and the service we supply to people, and the inclusivity agenda is not only that. So we take care about the disabled and aged people, and with the let's say forced relocation, the immigrants, in terms of the military conflicts and other natural catastrophes and disasters, and people become vulnerable, appear to be vulnerable, and that's how. And in this respect, that's our approach is to be really involved into in the context of inclusivity and social sector support. And the third aspect, which is important for us, is what we look at is we look at the social problems which we can influence ourselves, and we can't help being not involved. And the search for lost people in Russia particularly, and that's basically the global program. but there's approximately 120,000 people get lost or disappear due to various, and that's the urban environment and the natural. And traditionally, our people go to forests, pick up mushrooms and the berries. That's kind of a traditional habit of our population, and that is why so many people get lost. So no doubt that in order to allow them to be found, and certain technologies have to be applied to help people. And with this development alert, the search and rescue activists, we have been establishing the search and rescue operations and make it available for all the people in Russia. Why it is so important? Because 85% of people who got lost, whether in the forest or have been disoriented in cities, they carry a mobile phone, and the use of this system and then the operator, being us, get applications from people, and the most important is the privacy and the personal data management. So from one part we have the human life at stake, and we have some legislation which dictates a certain procedures to be observed. That I'm finishing here. Accordingly, we have made a decision that the ethical situation cannot be a standard, and so we have to develop specific technologies which will evolve into legislation amendments, and which will translate the active social position to build the relevant rescue systems for the families, for Russian families, and that's what we focus on, and that's our input into development of intellectual mind, and this is one of our major focuses. Tatiana, let us finish the first round. I'll speak briefly. We have some timing limitations, so I would like to first talk about Volvo cars. For Volvo, SCR has started in 1927 when the founders. The cars have been safe for people. So when the three-point belt and the engineers didn't patented this invention, in order to make all the automobile producers can make use of it, and approximately to the latest data, many people have been able to survive, and these kind of inventions like the exhaust purification system, the CO emissions, which have been widely used in the combustion engines, and you probably heard that Volvo by 2013 remain producing only e-automobiles, and that was a kind of for magistrate program and for marketing and economics, which we want to collaborate and offer them development of the strategy for all Volvo cars in Russia on the making the electric cars popular, and we made kind of a brief in front of the audience, and we have 3 groups on one course, and I hope students will be interested to participate. So in terms of SCR, we work internally and domestically and internationally. And I gave an interview, and I was interviewed and during that I realized that the corporate responsibility for the global companies like Volvo cars. So you have a lot of events to come up with. So in 2018, there was the first time on the 5th of June, the UN organization have set up the day, Environmental Day, and that was the day of the protection of shores from plastic waste. And our employees all over the world at the sites of our present venues, and so we went out, and here our office people went out, took a coach and went to a to a shore of a lake, and we collected all plastic waste on the shore, on the banks of that lake and the rivers. And so we go out every time on this day and make sure the forest or any bank or shore is cleared. And so we have collaborators, eco-bloggers working with us, and that's our global and individual level.
No, thanks a lot. Please do not pass your microphone. We're going to round number 2. If the first round it was more about concepts, the second is more contradictory. Why? Because we are going to speak of how the pandemic influenced the agenda and the classification of all types of processes that are possible. And we have to recognize today that the pandemic and the different research and reports they all show that there is a huge regress in the economic agenda. It means underfunding. It means the conditions. Well, the agenda was targeted at not creating the most favorable conditions. So the agenda for the vulnerable, and the vulnerable people, they suffered. Even if we speak about other types of challenges, like social challenges, it also means financial challenges. It means a bad impact on the financial liquidity, on the health of employees, and just general social negative impacts and the risks that are not mentioned all the time, such as different financial violations, breaches, and also the broken supply chains, which resulted in the destruction of these chains, and the companies were not able to meet up their deadlines, etc., etc., or the level of confidentiality, privacy has dropped down. And so on the one hand, companies say that this is a bad systemic failure, but on the other hand, it makes people think about how to build up the system in a more sustainable way. So for you, are there any contradictions in that sphere? So how did just the agenda for the SCR changed after beyond the pandemic in your company? Well, I don't know whether I should speak about it here, because we have agreed that I would talk today about the programs for the support of women in the company of Volvo. But I think that I will tell about what I want to tell you. Well, if you have something to tell us, please do. Well, I have things to tell you, but especially with a wide audience, it would be more interesting to tell those things. In our company, in our region, we have, just during the pandemic, we had, on the one hand, you call it a benefit or a bonus or something, but on the other hand, it's also part of our SCR inside the company. And this called Volvo Family Bond. This is a special program when an employee, male or female, who has a child in their family, can take a vacation. So a man can go on a vacation to take care of for the child, and he's going to get like 80% of his payroll. But this is like equal rights in educating children, in bringing up children. And if fathers, for example, they don't want to go on a vacation, then there is a granny or grandpa, and they can take this vacation until he's 3 years old. The baby is 3 years old. And for women, the sick leave is paid in our company mostly 100% to 100%. But before pandemic, what was kind of support? Well, this was adopted before pandemic, but it was not before, and it still continues. So globally, in the whole company, this program has been adopted from the 1st of April of this year, actually. No, this is it's absolutely new benefit. It's a new program. Thanks a lot, Evgeny. So can you just... I understand your doubts. I'll try to be speaking more about the practice about us. In 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, all this story that is still continuing, for us it became a driver for the development in the agenda of ESG in the context of that the issues of the social and environmental impact has become evident or apparent for all top managers, and these became inscribed in the major strategy of the company. I will explain to you why. Because just everybody had to go online, and then under the situation of lockdown and of course reduction of offline work. And this has become a great challenge for all the operators of cellular communication, because whether the networks are going to sustain that transition to online, whether the access is going to be provided to everyone, it would impact the economics. And the cellular operators, they became, the centers of competencies for many industries and sectors of economics who had the possibility to transition to online. And we, together with our colleagues and other companies, telephone companies. So we were providing opportunities for education for various corporations and tried to implement all the measures that were required through this challenge, through pandemic. So we increased the investment in building the network in spite of huge problems. In 2020, every half an hour a new station was built all over Russia. Why? Because we had to provide a total inclusiveness to the economy and provide education. And secondly, which is no less important for businesses who can afford going online, we needed to provide them these opportunities. 63,000 enterprises, they used special packages from our companies, but you also have to think about the other companies in the market, like such as packages of remote access, which included not only technical support, but also administrative support of employees, of participants, etc. And in record time, we were able to switch a huge number of people from offices to home education and work from home. And in this respect, we see our opportunities to measure the impact and to be more and more serious to build in our influence into the economic context deeper and deeper by bringing the investments that we're planning in the context of the development of the network, in the development of socially important services, in designing these services, and also taking into account some new challenges that are popping up in front of us from the economy and by the nature, let's say so. So COVID became a driver for the development of the environmental agenda of the company, which was able to see in a systemic way what its role in this global scale. So it's not a mere care for the clients or for their employees and their families. It's more than that. Why? Because we got a higher understanding, and we see maybe a whole mile farther in the context of the development of our business. And this is a great revolution in our attitude. So we no longer thought that this is a social responsibility of the business. We started understanding the parameters that impact the business, where the business has a real impact, and what new technologies mean in our context. But it also the same about retail. It's also about in the other industries. Business has impact in social and economic aspects, not to prevent the social and economic explosion or the failure of the economy through the provision of tools or through the mechanics that help the state to implement various programs. This is a huge challenge for the business, because here you have to be ready, you have to be prepared, and you can be prepared for that if you know that the social responsibility is not some abstract program or some extra additional activity that can improve your image or reputation, but when you can assess how your business really impacts the situation, what effect it has on the situation. So here the contradictions are removed. I absolutely agree with my colleagues, so especially about the last statements of Evgenia, because it can clearly set, it's very clear that the pandemic became a catalyst. We didn't have, just any rollback in the sphere of social goals of the sustainable development goals. On the contrary, our agenda has reinforced because we had to ensure the safety for the health of our employees and provide support to regions. It's more than $1 billion of rubles in 2020. This is usually 3 times more than our standard expenditure on the agenda of cooperation. But what changes happened? The figures have increased. What we started focusing more, what we started thinking about more. Of course, we are a company that worked during the pandemic period. We preserved all the places, we kept them. We didn't have any idle time, just all the deadlines were met, and 1,500 employees they were sent off to the lockdown, but we preserved their salaries. So lots of things were done, and the major focus is that where we spend the money mostly. This was more about the health. We expanded our focus or attention not only on our employees but also on the subcontractors, because the company is always implementing various investment projects such as analytics platform. And last year, for example, 50% of the present the work just from subcontractor organizations. And whatever we did with respect to safety and provision of protective tools, and we had also full coverage testing, PCR testing. We implemented lots of various measures, such as providing additional routes for the transportation, using single-use kitchenware, and everything included also the subcontractor organizations. They were also obliged to do that. So we focused on the subcontractors, such as small companies, regional companies, and those who procured services from us. And we looked whom we could support and whom in regional companies. And we shifted from various charity programs. One of the focuses of our charity program is interaction with educational institutions, higher institutions, universities. And here we also have programs of providing special stipends, scholarship support for professors, various themed programs. But we focused also on increasing the expenditures on provision online education more, because educational institutions also had to be restructured. They had to change their activities, and so there was a necessity to support them with the online access for the students. So there were changes. So this is whatever is related to the pandemic. So anyone can think about that, because this was absolutely natural to do that. But there were also some surprises. For example, the agenda about the diversity and inclusion. For us, we saw it from a different angle. On the one hand, we are an international institution. We have to provide, just equal opportunities, etc. But there were some new aspects. But for example, what is a remote work for a production company? In a production company, around 30% maximum is administration. How many people could work remotely? We had 3,000 people who worked remotely. Other people could not work remotely, But it meant also some risk for the employees who have to go to work every day. They have to ensure the production processes. And what happens here is that then there is a layering on the other hand. This means unequal opportunities, because some people have to risk their health by, riding the public transport to their work. But the others who are white collars and have better conditions, now they can sit at home. They have even better conditions. And so this is something that we had to discuss through open dialogues with the top managers. We had hotlines with the presidents of companies when everyone had to answer the questions. There were some decisions made about those who went on the shift. They had a higher pay, especially especially in the hardest pandemic periods. So there was a differentiation up to 20%. So on top of the salary, more money was paid. So this is something that we also had to pay attention to, and we still continue living with that, because now it's clear that the hybrid format of work has become stable in our life, and for us as a production company, it does not mean equal conditions for our work. This is not equal opportunities. This is a shift, and it means that we have to ensure there's some inclusive environment, and we have to think how to provide that. Well, thanks a lot. I would probably listen on and on to every one of you, but we are a little bit beyond the schedule because we have a little bit limited time, so therefore the role of the moderator is always not very pleasant. Let's do it this way. Now we're going to finish the second round, and then we are going to start a third round. So can you make just a short speech on two questions? The first question I already asked you about the pandemic. Did you see, when you spoke with a wide range of companies in your partnerships, did you see some new approaches? Or maybe not some operational or quick reaction like giving out masks to everyone, but new vision, new approach, some new discoveries, discovery of new risks or something like that. And secondly, that the second round, that we're going to make it faster, dynamic, so it's more inspirational one. So maybe you just tell us about some example of some inspirational cases very briefly. Or maybe you can tell us about how you see the future development of corporate social responsibility, taking into account the new risks, especially that we had to go online. So how are you going to ensure the balance between the personal life and work? Or maybe there are some informational risks, such as privacy of personal life. This is also a hard topic. Also the risks in the supply chain, the balance of investments, etc., etc. Will the company move forward in that? So what do you think?
Thank you.
I will use the same word as my colleagues on the panel. We really saw that COVID-19 was a catalyst for businesses to shift towards more impact-focused CSR. Governments and societies clearly identified the need, and then businesses stepped up to meet the challenge. We saw businesses adjusting, transforming their policies, their strategies, and their operations to solve COVID challenges. So it went beyond the quick fix, if you like. One thing I'd like to highlight is we saw corporate policies around the flexible working time, remote working time. I know it's not for everyone, but the flexible working time and the more efficient IT platforms, the telecommunications, this all ensured business continuity and gave employees the opportunity to juggle that new normal. And if companies can continue to do this, they're actually going to solve one of the biggest challenges to productive employment, particularly for women, and this is the work-life balance. If we have more flexible options for working mothers and fathers, they don't have to make a choice between family and career. And businesses that continue to have these policies after the pandemic are giving a clear signal that it is possible to have both, to have a career and a family. So I think that is one hopefully lasting contribution from the pandemic. Other companies also tried to improve their CSR with external partners, focusing on the most vulnerable. We've mentioned older persons and also persons with disability. Sometimes they did this in partnership or on their own, but this was another sort of catalytic moment from the pandemic, noting which are the vulnerable members of society and trying to address them. For UNFPA, across the countries where we run programs, we really saw the private sector step up. They wanted to play a strong role in alleviating suffering, in supporting the social and economic recovery. I'm hoping that this does not mean that if the pandemic passes, that the private sector will step back from the recovery. I'm hoping that what we've learned, we will also continue to use post-pandemic and bring this into future operations and business practices. I just wanted to come to your point about some of the best practices that we've seen at UNFPA. One of the examples I like the most is when we see companies who want to work with us on older persons. Unfortunately, this is a very forgotten population, which I think we should all be concerned about, as it's a population we all hope to join one day, right? So I think this is something most need to pay attention to. We know that the Russian government and Russian companies have actually taken quite effective steps here to improve the inclusiveness of older persons in society. I'm aware of an example from Rostelecom and the pension fund educating older people on computer literacy and the internet. This is an example we'd really like to see copied across the region. We're working on similar projects in Serbia and Moldova and Belarus with digital companies to try and educate and empower older people, to give them connection even where they may be physically isolated. These companies have identified an important social cause, but they are also identifying a potential market. Older persons and the simple connectivity that they need will be a potential market for the future. Just going to move on now to another group, people with disabilities. As you kindly said, they're not disabled, they just have less abled than ourselves, and I love that phrase. So we've worked with some partners here who we needed to try and reach these people. We needed to translate some of the COVID information into Braille. We needed to buy specialized medical equipment to help disabled women give birth safely. And lastly, I just want to mention the best practice that a number of us have mentioned already, the flexible work environment. We've been working with a lot of governments across the region and companies to create more family-friendly policies. By offering the right package of remote work, flexible hours, childcare, maternity and paternity, businesses are sending this message that, you know, we really can do both and we can have women participate in the labour force just as much as men. The companies who adopt these practices really have the respect and the recognition of governments and societies. And there's social benefits that are evident, but there are business benefits too. A healthier, happier, and more diverse workforce. These are the great examples of COVID that I have seen. Evolving the business operations, new markets, new products, all indicators of a sustainable future for a company, I think. So I hope to see more of these practices and learn more today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and sorry. Коллеги, у нас с вами осталось буквально 4 минуты.
Yeah, dear colleagues, we have only 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and so can you tell us about some other inspirational example? Well, inspirational forecast, this is good, but on the one hand, but I'd like to say we will have other roundtables that are going to be dedicated to women, elderly people, and disabled people. But all these priorities for us are extremely important because the company has a long-time traditions for providing support to people from these social groups who are being transformed under the transformation, and they are changing, you know, with the pace of the time. And so probably these focuses or priorities are going to continue. Currently, we provide this support to women, and such as, for example, enabling them to go on a vacation. Women, when they know that she is pregnant, then just from the time, you know, she gets pregnant, from the very time she can go on a pregnancy leave and you receive the full payment. So we have some material aid provided to them. There is a whole group of support for small children, etc., etc. So these are the traditional, conventional programs that have been established for a long time, but now we have understood that we have in our documents such terms as support to mothers and children. So this now we are, you know, just probably going to change it to parental support rather than maternal support, and. But and we're happy that we see that the men also use this type of benefits. As for the elderly people, as I have already mentioned, during COVID we had some special priorities. But to be able to understand what it is, it means 27,000 in Lipetsk and 14,000. These are former employees that are still registered in our Council of the Veterans. So so we take care of them. Additionally, we have a corporate pension. So in addition to the governmental pension. So, and we have also volunteership programs. And this is like aspirational thing. We have 1,500 volunteers before the pandemics. We had them, but in order to provide products to people who are in a lockup. So they actively do that, and this inspires us a lot. And we are a production company, but we don't have many workplaces who can be accessible for disabled people. So, but still, we have 246 employees who have some limited disabilities, and we're planning to develop it further. Just only 10 seconds. Well, the positive experience that has been brought to us by COVID is that there are no more mental barriers in the inclusive employment. And inclusive employment, it has become possible not only using the digital mechanisms, but also through the change in the mental, in the mind. At every step, we have all become, people with limited abilities. We all become disabled because we had to use QRs. We couldn't go out of homes. We had a whole range of conditions that enabled us to go outside. So this experience enabled the company and the government and the country to rethink about the opportunities on employment of people with disabilities. And today, I think that this is a new maybe not new trend, but it's a new opportunity to integrate this category of people into the open labor market. We are working with our partners and with all the companies that are developing digital environment. And so we are all developing specialized programs for the professional orientation of people with disabilities in the context of digital highly demanded professions. And in the near future, we will just probably no longer see it as a challenge, because those will be vacancies for the people with disabilities, and this is a very positive experience that the pandemic has brought up for us. 3 stories. The first, no, please. As short as possible. We will never go back offline. We have fully offline. We have made a decision that 3 days from home, 2 days online. So, but it depends on how comfortable it is for people. We're flexible here. And secondly, I don't know whether it's connected with the pandemic, but during the pandemic, many people got animals like dogs. I hope that these, dogs will still be in those families after the pandemic. And so with our company, together with the Beethoven pet shop or pet stores, we are going to just provide more money for adoption of dogs. And third one, I forgot about it, sorry, but you will have just time later to tell us about a third story. Well, I'm sorry for holding you back, but these are very important things and very interesting things. And so you can see that this company, they are no longer the companies that only make money. This is a new model, and they become open social systems that enable them to preserve their competitive advantage. Thank you for your attention.